Hey guys, I just wanted to reach out to you and let you know that Surewinder is still selling amazing products. Some of you guys have been dragging your feet for whatever reason. If your shoulder hurts, do not waste time. Pull the trigger. I just bought 4 or 5 of them, and we had 2 guys out. You know how much it cost me to pay for 2 guys being out with bad shoulders? We just pulled the trigger and we said, listen, everybody's going to have one on a truck. It's mandatory. You got to use it. Don't hesitate. Don't wait till your guys go down. It's going to cost you more. Buy a Surewinder.
What's up, guys? Ryan here, Torsion Talk podcast. Welcome. We are about to start something new for you. This should be very interesting. This is going to be a multi-part series where I break down how to start a garage door company. Now, if you've already started a garage door company, why would you even want to listen to this? Because there might be some things you missed that would be very important. And I'm going to teach you pretty much everything I know. I've started a lot of different businesses and been a part of a lot of different industries. And I've learned a lot of different things. I'm sure I'll miss some things. If I do miss them, make sure you hit me up or leave a comment on Facebook, Instagram, whatever, wherever. Message me. Let me know something that I might need to add, and I'll make sure to give you a shout out and props when I mention it in future podcasts. But we are going to hit on how to start a garage door company from scratch. Before we do, we have a couple announcements, a couple things that you need to know. I want to say shout out, thank you to all of our sponsors. Without you, we couldn't do this. Appreciate you very much. Number 2, I think it's really important for us to understand that education is key when we're doing things. And that is why I'm so dedicated to education. Now, I do this podcast, it's free content, and I hope that it's helpful for you. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be listening. However, there's additional information that I think you need to know. And that is why we created Garage Door U. Garage Door U has training. We also have networking, like peer groups, as well as Garage Door U Summit, which we will be announcing registration for here shortly. And you can go out and register. We're going to be doing financing for these payments to make it a little bit more affordable. The feedback that I keep getting from everybody is how difficult it is at the moment to pay for something like that. Listen, if you are in startup mode or you are a couple years in, you may not be able to make it. But I want to challenge you because this information is not only going to rejuvenate you, but the information at Summit is going to help you grow. It's going to help you get vision for your business. And I think that's very important. So here we go. Are you guys ready for this? I have some notes, so forgive me. This might be a little bit different, but I'm going to try to stay on task. When you're ADD, you need a little bit of a roadmap. So let's dive in. When you're starting out, this is going to be a plan prior to launch. We're going to build a plan. Number 1, build a plan. This plan needs to include who is your customer? Like, what do they look like? Where do they live? Where do they work? Where do they play? What services do you want to offer? Define them. You don't have to offer every service. I know startups who don't offer new doors. They only do repair. I know companies who really like to focus on repair. Some companies do commercial and residential repair or install only. These are all things that you need to figure out. Maybe you don't want to do motors. Maybe you want to do motors. Like, really figure out, what do you want to start with? You don't have to start with every service, but you can if you want. What do you want to offer? Where do you want to offer your services? So pick your service areas, right? And in this scenario, like, it's a double-edged sword. If you're too tight, maybe you don't get enough business. If you're too wide, you're diluted. So I would say probably, depending on your area, it's really tough, right? So I can't give broad advice on this particular topic. But what I can say is you gotta figure out what can sustain you. Where can you grow? Is your market feasible for another garage door company? You know, the pie is only so big. Can you carve out enough to make hit the goals that you want to hit for your personal self or your business? So where do you want to offer these services? How much runway do you have? This is a popular term when startups. Runway just means, hey, I've got X amount of dollars. I can pay myself this, and I will run out of money by this time if I don't get to the next level. So you need to figure out like how long can you sustain making very little money. And this is where like you're your biggest enemy because you got to pay yourself. And every dollar you pay yourself, you're not putting back into the business. But it's very important to take care of yourself first because without you, there's no business, right? And if you lose the business, you still have you. So you got to have that mindset. You got to take care of yourself. When can you afford to hire someone? So how are you going to know that? Because you're going to do projections. You're going to do revenue projections. And what I like to do is I like to do two sets of projections. I like to do sales projections and I like to do revenue projections. I'll tell you why. Sales projections are easier for me. And a lot of people want to like think about revenue, but revenue always trails sales. So what I would say is I think it's really important that in the grand scheme of things, we focus on sales and the money trails. So there's going to be some things I'm going to tell you where you really focus on revenue, but that's going to be cash flow focused. But I really, 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 really want you to focus on sales numbers, projections on sales numbers. What do you think you can close on a monthly basis? And quite honestly, like I think just about anyone can get to about 30 grand in monthly revenue in the garage door industry. And regardless of territory, like I've seen a bunch of different areas, $30,000 a month seems to be like the easiest. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. All right. When you hire that person, what would they look like? So when can you afford to hire someone? You figure that out under your projections. What would that person do and look like? Meaning, what would they do in your company? Which they're probably going to have to wear many hats. And that's okay. Like that's okay. You have to understand that people love feeling important. And when you hire someone in your startup, it's a high risk, high reward company or high position. Now, you may not get somebody that's super qualified because most qualified people are looking for a little bit more stability than to be the first employee of a startup company, but you still may get that person. It's very possible. Maybe they love the idea of your vision and mission, which we're going to get to in a second. So once you figure out all that, what that looks like, and this plan doesn't need to be designed or formatted any particular way. Like, let's keep this very simple. I don't care if you write it down on a freaking napkin or put it in your phone notes or whatever. Like, it just needs to be available for you to revisit on a regular basis to keep you focused. But this plan does not need to be formatted super nice. You don't need to go online and look up all these things about business plans. I've never written out a business plan. It's pretty much everything I do all the time. It doesn't take me very long to sit down and do all this. Matter of fact, I'm pretty good. I'm almost hit my projections every single year, with the exception of last year. We're pretty spot on. It takes many variations and changes and adjustments and bouncing things off of people and all that to figure out what's the real number that we're going for. And again, I do a lot of sales projections, not revenue projections, but we will get to revenue here in a minute. Number two, let's talk about naming, logo, and website, like your brand. What does that look like? So here's a couple things to note, right? You got to figure out if you got some cash set aside, I would invest a little bit of money into this. Nothing screams small time than a trashy logo and website. And I know I'm a marketer and I know that I'm probably can't see clearly with this, right? Like I know that I could be it's probably impossible for me to view this strictly through the eyes of a business owner, but I always wanted to look bigger than I was, but not too big where I was corporate, right? Because people need to have enough faith in you when they hire your business, and your website's a reflection of who you are, especially when you're a sole proprietor or a one man getting started. So, a couple things with logos: keep them simple. Like, just keep them simple. I do not like garage doors and logos. I know I did that with mine originally. It was a stupid idea. Don't do it. I don't like it. I don't think it's a good idea. You're in the service industry. I would focus on service. You could have a character like some type of avatar that represents your business, like a garage door guy. I don't like the idea of a garage door in the logo. That I also think colors are pretty important. Contrasting colors or colors that represent something that you want to represent. Those are important. Font is important, and there's a huge difference between going and spending $150 on one of these sites that will build you out a logo and going to a branding company. Now, you've got branding companies that charge 15, 20 grand, which uh, for name and logo. And I think that's probably a little for a startup, like in this scenario, probably not achievable, right? But if you could figure out a way to do it, then I think it's great. There are people out there who are good at this and that do it for 3 to 5 grand, and they do a phenomenal job. And they will build you a logo. Now, the logo needs to be vector format, as well as out of that you can create PNG and JPEG. You want an icon that you can use that represents your business, something that like is small and typically square. And then I like my logos to be horizontal. Uh, It just works well in just about every format that you're going to use it in. And then you can even make it vertical in some cases, but you can set up a brand guide in Canva. Canva's free. Set up a brand guide for yourself. I don't know if you got to pay for the brand guide or not, but set up a brand guide in there. Figure out your colors, your all, that way, like when you go to give this to the people who are going to be making your shirts, your hats, your magnets, whatever for your vehicle, like you need to make sure it's on point. Um, so the logo is a big deal. Let's talk about naming. I don't think naming's super important, but it needs to be descriptive. Be careful thinking too small and be careful thinking too big, right? I think you need to find something that relates to the prototypical customer that you designed earlier, the avatar when you were doing your planning. The name also, you can you can do a Google search for TESS, trademark search. And then I would suggest you go in and do a word mark search, so you can see if these names are taken in your towns. You can also go to your like government site, state government site, a lot of times and do searches for names. I honestly would probably recommend that you hire an attorney to do a search for the name. Name can be a big deal, especially if you're buying a logo from like one of these sites that you pay $150 or $250 or whatever for a logo, because they literally could be snatching some stuff off. And I don't think they're doing trademark searches and going through that process, just because I don't think they would for that amount of money. There's a lot that goes into that. And to avoid potential lawsuit or issues down the road, I think this would be the best case scenario for you. It is an upfront investment, but trust me when I tell you, you do not want to be in a courtroom or fighting another company that's been established for a long time, who has the money to pay for attorneys, and you get started and then you got to start over with a new name, new brand, everything. Like, this is probably one of the least utilized parts of starting a business. And I would strongly recommend you do a good job with this part. naming and logo is important. Then, in my eyes, a lot of times you can buy a smaller website that's nicer than going out and buying a cookie cutter site. So, in my opinion, you got to have the logo first, brand colors, name, all that. Then you get to work on the website. And I would go with a smaller site, even if it's just 2 or 3 pages to start out with. And then if they, whatever company you're working with has like an SEO package or like a maintenance package or something like that, where you could continuously add pages and content. Sometimes you can even build your own site or have them build it for you and then give you access. Not a great idea depending on the platform they're building on. Sometimes it's easy to log in and do that. But I would also recommend maybe just like writing the pages in Word doc or Google Drive and sharing it with them along with a photo or two that you took that's corresponding to that page and have them add it to the website. So that was number two. Number three, let's talk about setup cost and budget. You're going to have to do insurance, licensing, tools, truck, stock parts, a little bit of marketing, probably not a ton at this point, but a little bit, software. And when we're talking about all this stuff, you're going to buy the minimum. You need the absolute minimum of everything. Do not go out and buy a really nice Macked out truck. You do not need it right now. You don't even know if you're going to make it. So you want to buy this truck that's going to get you by. Cash is king at this point, and you do not have a lot of it most likely. So I would strongly recommend keeping it simple, keeping the cost down. Insurance, you've never needed insurance more than you do right now if this is something you're considering. Make sure your insurance provider is smart, your agent, and they are looking out for your best interest. Ask them about things like addendums for damages through advertising. This saved me in a couple scenarios. So, like, if someone sues you based on an ad, then you can defend it and have insurance pay for it. So, there's lots of things that you can do here, but your setup costs for the business as well as your budget. And for most, like I know here in Georgia, it's probably like it used to be cheaper. I think you could do a name search, and then the name search took a couple days. And then from there, you would register the business after that came back approved. And that was like $100. So you were like name search was 25. So you were in for like 125 bucks. It's probably like 200 now, I think, in the state of Georgia to do all that. And then you get your EIN number, and your EIN number, you use that to go to the bank and open up your bank account, but it's basically like your social security number for your business. So that's kind of the process, but you got to factor in every expense you can think of, all these expenses, factor them all in, figure it out. And then, we're not going to go into it right now, but there's different ways to register your business. You could be a sole proprietor, you could be an LLC, you could be an S Corp, you could be a C Corp. So we can go into that at a later date. But I wrote a note down. I'm just going to read it to you because it's kind of long. Identify and keep monthly expenses low. Build a spreadsheet with projections and get in the habit of job costing. Now, your profit should include overhead and labor and material. So, one mistake I see with a lot of business owners for the first time, like they're brand new, they're only considering a couple things. How much did the door cost me? And how much does the labor cost me? And they're pricing the job out with that in mind. They're not considering the fact that, they got a truck payment, they got insurance now, they got, all this stuff. So you got to factor that in. Figure out, like, once you do this plan where you kind of figure out what your monthly expenses are, break that down by day. So let's say, for example, starting out, you're able to keep your expenses down for the most part, and you're a sole proprietor, but you want to pay yourself. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well later, but you want to pay yourself. So factor that in and factor in your insurance and your marketing budget and your software and your truck payment. You want to have a budget for tools. So in the beginning, I would try to stretch those out as much as possible, but I would have, maybe $100 a month that you get to spend on tools, um, and equipment, maybe another $100 in equipment, insurance. So you take all of this stuff and you divide it up by how many days you're going to work per month. And in the startup world, this probably looks like, 21 to 25, maybe 26, 27 days a month. I worked whenever I needed to. And that was when I had business. So 6 to 7 days a week. And I really try to take Sunday off every single month or week. But there were times where I wasn't able to, and we needed the business. So I went out and did jobs on Sundays. But long story short, you got to get in the habit of taking that amount, finding it, figuring out what your daily expenses are. You need to cover those daily expenses with the profit from the jobs, plus paying you, plus paying for whatever parts and material you use on the job. All right. So we're still on 3, which is setup cost and budgeting. I want you to establish a commission for yourself. What does that look like? Well, this is going to be dependent on what your overhead personally is. What do you need to cover your overhead? What do you need to live and feed yourself and your family and whatever else, as well as, what is going to help make the company healthy? You don't want to pay yourself too much out the gate. But you also don't want to pay yourself too little out the gate. You need to have some money to put back into the business so you can grow it. And let's talk about, while we're on this topic, gross profit margins and how to calculate them. There's a couple things to take in consideration. There's margin and there's markup. Now I've covered this before, but I want to cover it again. Markup is when you take, like, let's say the door's $1,000 a month, and you do markup of, let's call it 2. So you're doing a multiplier of 2. So you take $1,000 and you times it by 2, right? So that's probably going to be what, $2,000. So a lot of people just go with that, but they're not even taking consideration the labor, right? So if that labor is going to cost you a half a day and you need to make a minimum amount of money every day, you need to figure out what that labor needs to be, and also put the markup or the margin on the labor as well, right? So if you're paying yourself, you need to pay yourself $250 a day, then you would probably do that same markup to multiplier by 2. So if it's $250, now you're at $2,500, right? 50% of that is going to be expenses. 50% of that is going to be gross profit, but you still haven't taken into consideration your expenses that you have. So I would also figure out if your expenses break down to be, $300 a day, maybe you put that in and add that to the cost of the door. So now you're at $2,800 installed. So you took care of your expenses plus your gross profit. And in a startup world, this would be considered very successful if you can do that and get those numbers. All right. So that pretty much covers 3: setup cost and budgeting. Oh, I do need to explain margin. There are charts that you can build, or go online and find charts for markup equals margin. Like, what does that look like? But margin is how financials are measured. There's no scenario in QuickBooks where you're going to be talking about markup versus margin. It's just going to be margin. If you're going to run your business off of margin, which you are, because once you get a little bit bigger, you're going to have to learn these things. Margin is how you need to price your products. Just get used to the verbiage, understanding it, and explaining it. But margin is basically, if we were trying to get that same 2 multiplier on $1,000, right? We're gonna do, let's see. If we are at $1,000 divided by 0.5 is 2,000. So that is how I do it. Take $1,000 divided by 0.5, and that's $2,000. So it's 50% margin. Let's say I wanted to go to 45% margin. Take $1,000 divided by 0.65, because that's the opposite of 45, It gives me a sales price of $15.38. Okay. So 5% less margin is going to cost me 400 and something dollars. That doesn't sound right. So $1,000, if we do 30%, it's $1428,000 at let's call it 45%. Oh, never mind. 45% is 0.55. I was doing 0.65 for whatever reason. It's 1818. So $1,000 divided by 0.55, we give you 45% gross profit margin, and that's 1818. So that's going to cost you 100 and what, 72, 82, $182 less. So you need to get used to working on margin. I know it can be a little bit confusing, but once you figure out how to calculate it, it's not difficult. So, although I did probably just kind of confuse you and screw it up right here live, but I am live. So, I am not going to correct this. You're just going to get the raw, uncut version of this podcast. Hey guys, I found something that changed my business and I want to share it with you. We've created packages that have included some of the best products in our industry to offer our service customers. The heart of that package is Stealth Hardware Kit. Stealth Hardware is the quietest hinges on the market. I challenge you to buy at least one of these, test it for yourself. Put it on your truck and design a quiet performance package for your customers willing to pay for a better, smoother running door. Buy your Stealth Hardware Kit at Service Spring, do a search for quiet hinge, and then buy that. You can buy a double or single door, 7 or 8 foot tall, and promise you, it'll change your service forever.
Somer USA and Somer Group want to thank you for an incredible year and the trust you put in them and their products. As you know, Somer places high value on relationships, education, customer service, innovation, and professionalism. And they are grateful to you for your part in the fostering and dissemination of these values. If there is any way Somer can support you in your journey, whether through their products, the values they hold to, or the knowledge Somer has gained through interaction with door dealers across the world, please reach out to the team at your convenience. They are here to serve you. Again, thank you from the entire Somer team. Check them out at somerusa.com. Tell them Ryan sent you.
All right. So we just finished up number 3, talking about budget and setup costs and financials, kind of a little bit about how to price product. We're going to talk about number 4, client acquisition plan. So how are we going to acquire new clients? Single-handedly, the most important part of this whole situation. We're going to talk about lead gen. So where can you get leads? You can get leads from like Home Advisor, Angie, things like that. But part of the challenge with going to those sites at the moment is you're going to websites that have been established for a very long time, and a lot of other companies in your area have a beat on you. They have a ton of reviews there already. What are the chances someone's going to want to review or hire a company who has 0 reviews? So this is where it becomes very challenging. Most lead gen platforms have reviews. So Yelp is particularly does not allow you to ask for reviews. And if their algorithm feels like you asked for it by the way they entered into the site, they will hide those reviews. Becomes very challenging. So getting off the ground with client acquisition can be very difficult. We'll talk about number 2, door knocking. This is number 2 under client acquisition plan. So we did a lot of door knocking when we were younger, and we would be doing a door install. If we didn't have jobs and everybody wasn't booked, everybody in the office, like, whatever, everybody. Well, we'd go knock on doors throughout the neighborhood. So I think door knocking can be good, but also can be a waste of time. Meaning, if I had the choice, I would probably go to networking groups instead. Meaning, Chamber of Commerce, business alliance groups, business clubs, things like that. So also yard signs, definitely. This is probably one of the best returns on investment you can do. Get yard signs. I know my buddy David Carroll, Dope Marketing, runs specials on these quite often. I'm gonna mention him a few times here because I think it's an advantage, but definitely get yard signs. He does like uh 400 yard signs. I don't know. He does a special. I think it's like for 400 yard signs. I could be wrong, but it's really inexpensive, or it's $4 a yard sign for 100. So you pay 400 bucks, but you want to put these yard signs out in every job that you do, and then common places. So design it really nicely, make it super clean, make it clean, simple, neat. People are not going to be reading a book on this thing. I would have my logo, garage door repair and installation, and maybe a phone number. That's it. Direct mail, David Carroll, Dope Marketing, another great place to go. Direct mail is a great solution. Also, if you combine all these things together, it can be even more powerful. So let's take for consideration you are about to do a door install in a neighborhood that you want to get your foot in. And this is critical because you're going to have a plan for this, right? So let's say that you get a deposit for a customer that you are going to be. Ooh, I think I skipped something on the financial side. We'll talk about that later down, I think. Um, yeah, we will. All right. So let's say you get a deposit for a customer that's going to have you install a new door. Best thing you can do right then and there, if you have time, is to go to, we'll call it the 6 house rule. Go to 6 houses that surround that house, cross street, both sides, whatever. Knock on the doors and tell them, hey, Miss Susie Smith, right next door to you, just bought a door from us. And I'd love to give you a quote for a new door, or potentially just service your door for free since we're right here in the neighborhood. Would you be interested? And see if you can get anything. If they're not there, put door hangers on, which I'm going to talk about next. And so then you have the sign in the yard when you come back, but you're going to hit that neighborhood before you come back with direct mail. It says, hey, we're doing work in your neighborhood. If you would like a free quote or 25% off a service, this is while we're in your neighborhood, uh, contact us. And then you try to line up to be in that neighborhood all day if you can. And you can even offer some ridiculous deal just for like tune ups, but you're in the neighborhood. Might as well take advantage of the time you're going to be there and hit them with these offers. This is how you try to take over entire neighborhoods, which is great. So I like to pick neighborhoods that are big, social, have a Facebook page. Everybody's very active on it. And this is a great way to get in. So you got the deposit, put the yard sign in the mail, hit them with direct mail, and then you went door knocking. That is a win. And then when you finish that job with that customer, you simply ask them politely if they could do a testimonial video, then post it in their Facebook group. And then I would say I would even go out and do a video of the job site if as the salesperson, or if I'm doing the job because I'm a one man crew, I'm setting up, stages, videos, taking pictures, all of that. And I want to document it and run Instagram reels and Facebook posts and then boost those in the surrounding areas. And I would create a custom audience for that in that particular area. So you see how I'm like all of this is compounding on itself, super hyper local, super hyper focused. But I'm telling you that this works. It worked for me. It'll work for you if you do it right. All right. Number 5. So number 1 was build the plan. Number 2 is naming, logo, and website. Number 3 was set up cost and budget. Number 4 is client acquisition. Number 5, we're going to talk about software. Okay. There is probably 3 or 4 primary software that I would suggest to you. Now, this all depends on your budget, what you can accomplish for sure, 100%. But number 1 is QuickBooks. I understand that QuickBooks can be extremely intimidating and you probably don't want to deal with it. And QuickBooks is, I came out of the gate using a software called Zero, and it just created more problems because I didn't want to use QuickBooks. I'd used it in previous businesses and it frustrated me. But listen, Every CPA, every bookkeeper, they all know how to use it. It integrates with most systems. Just this is going to be one of those things you just need to eat. Like it's like toilet paper, right? I mean, you're buying it, you know it's a waste. You're just going to flush it down the toilet, but you got to pay for it anyway. I mean, this is just the way it is. So QuickBooks, just do it. Just do it. Let's set up a dispatch software. The three that I would recommend checking out right out of the gate are House Call Pro, Jobber, and Service Fusion. Service Fusion was a little buggy back in the day. I don't know what they're like now. I've heard they've gotten a lot better. I've heard all three of these have gotten better since I started. I actually launched with Jobber. Here's what I'll tell you about Jobber. When I started, I grew out of it when I hit a little over $1 million. I didn't get the insights into my business that I was looking for. So I was looking for more reports and data, and they didn't have it, but I have heard they have gotten much better with that. That would be probably my first phone call would be to Jobber. And then second would be House Call Pro. And third would be Service Fusion. I would check those three out for sure. I think Jobber does an amazing job with keeping their app like super clean. It didn't have any bug, like a lot of bugs when we were working with it. It's so user friendly for everyone in your organization. It's just dummy proof. So strongly recommend that. I also, if you can afford to, is sign up with a CRM system. And this can be a little bit tricky. There's a lot of different options you can use out there. So Monday.com is one. You can use it for CRM and project management, which most of these platforms do not have a good system for that because you're going to be going door knocking and you're going to getting leads and things like that. You may want to nurture those leads. So setting them up in maybe some type of click funnel or funnel in general to be able to reach out to these people. Let's think about it like this. If you do that plan we talked about earlier and you go knock on someone's door and they let you service the door, you could simply tell them that you're going to get them in their system and it's going to reach out to them every 6 months because that's what's, you know, recommended by DASMA for servicing a garage door. And you can have an automatic system reach out to them to schedule their next service. And I think that is absolutely beautiful to automate that system. People just have a tendency out of sight, out of mind, and making it convenient and easy for them, I think is super important. You could even set up to where you could use tags. This is something I would definitely do in this scenario. Use tags. Like maybe one tag could be needs motor. You set up that tag and they're maybe not ready to buy a new motor, but they will be in the near future because it's going to break down. It's older, it's loud, it's clunky. You could send them a coupon in 30 days that says, hey, we know that you didn't buy an opener from us, but we do know that your opener's past its life expectancy or whatever. You can even have this tag be old motor, right? And we're going to offer you $25 off a new opener if you buy in the next 24 hours. And then 30 days or 60 days from there, you do, $40 and say, hey, if you buy in the next 24 hours, we're going to offer you $40 off. Final call, right? And then, 90 days from there, you offer them $50 off. And you keep doing this until you get to your rock bottom price and or whatever. And then you change the messaging, you go to something completely different. But you can set all that up in a good CRM system. Monday.com has some stuff that you can use with automation, communication like that, as well as some great, it's a great platform for project management, meaning when you sell a door, you can have it go to your project management board. And then from there, you can track, has it been ordered? Who'd you order it through? Did you get a acknowledgement? You can attach that acknowledgement to that. So there's a lot of different things that you can do here. I also like Go High Level. It's missing some project management portion of the software. I have heard they're supposed to be rolling some stuff out in the near future, but big fan of Go High Level, especially for the CRM side, CRM/marketing stuff. If you are interested in getting set up on either one of those, you can hit me up directly. I can kind of walk you through some of them. I even have like an affiliate link that might give you off some and give me off some. So let me know if you're interested. I use both of those platforms, one for Aaron and well, both for Aaron, and then one for Markenuity, my marketing agency. So then lastly, I would try to find one of the cheapest, if not the cheapest, social planner software that I can find. And the reason why I say this is you're not going to be in control of your time as much as you think. Right. So maybe you dedicate Sunday nights to sitting down and doing social planning where you plan a bunch of posts for the week, you schedule them and have them all spread out through the week. This will give you a little time to get creative and find content that you think will be engaging and that your audience would really like. This software, whatever software you choose, will definitely help you with that. Now, we love Social Pilot for this reason. Social Pilot does a really good job. And I'll just pull that up real quick and tell you their pricing. That's fairly inexpensive. Let's see here. $25 a month billed annually or 30 monthly. 10 social media accounts, one user. That's really all you need. So for 30 bucks a month, you can set this up and schedule it. They also have a review management platform for 30 bucks a month, but most of the time your CRM or your dispatch software will have that. So not really huge need for that in most cases. $30 a month gives you 10 social media accounts. I think you can do Pinterest, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all kinds of stuff. And I highly recommend you do as many as possible and blast your photos and post out, schedule them, get them out there. So those are the software that I would recommend. And I would set those up like just prior to launching the company. Number 6, this is really important. And if you forget all of this, this is probably the one thing you can't forget. Sales, sales, sales. You have nothing if you have no sales. Now, a lot of people argue that you need to start the company with a manual, like a company manual, some processes and systems in place. Screw all that. Not important right now. You're a one man show. You do not need systems and processes and manuals, and you don't need any of that. Right. Like I've never created any of that my first year, ever, ever, ever. And I don't know too many people who do, unless you have some funding and you're going to be hiring up really quickly. This is not something that is important. You need to focus on sales. You need a plan for sales. How are you going to get sales as quickly as humanly possible? This is what's important. And I want you to focus on selling. And this means that, listen, I know sales has a bad connotation for a lot of people, but it doesn't have to be, right? I teach a training on sales that is non pushy, proven to work. I love packages. I would create packages for your clients and push the limits a little bit. Know your pricing. Make sure that you're pricing out to cover everything that you need to cover. But at the same time, you need to be making a profit. And I think that sales is what you're going to focus on the most. The the business owners that I've seen who are the most successful are great at sales and marketing. 100%. So sharpen those skills, get really good at it. If you want to push against sales, I think it's going to push against you. Number 7, I would leak your plan to start a business to your friends and family prior to your launch. So let's say that you're going to launch in January. I would probably leak it to your friends in November. And I would say, hey, if you or anybody you know needs garage door work, please let me know. Right. And you might get a couple phone calls and tell them, hey, it's a friend and family as I'm getting started. Prior to my launch, I'll come over and I will do a free service for you. And you go over there, you service their door, you wow them, you put a sticker in there and give them a card, whatever you need to do. But give them a good impression so they have something to anchor that thought with. and then they can give you a review. So now you're going to get a review on your business, and that is super important. So you're working for reviews right now, not cash prior to the launch, and that is definitely where I would focus. So that number 7 is leak to friends and family, and number 8 is treat every customer like your last and make sure you get reviews. So leading into that next part, that was a great way to get a review. And if you do a really good job with every customer, you will get reviews. So make sure that you do that because reviews will compound on itself. It doesn't cost you anything. Just do a good job and make sure that everything works. So we're going to leak to our friends a couple months prior to launch. We're going to offer them some free stuff to get reviews. And we're going to set up social media and build out and start posting before inviting anyone to like your page. So, for example, I want all my social media accounts to have my branding to look similar. Uh, Make sure that you're using quality photos. Make sure you got photos of yourself. Don't have them just be of doors. That's boring. Do not use stock imagery on your website or your social media. Like, give photos while you're at your friend's house doing the service. Have them take pictures of you in the garage while you're doing it. Have the spouse take pictures of you walking up, shaking their hand. Get some action photos of you in work, in action, getting tools off your truck, whatever. And then use that on the website. Build it out on the social media. Like, start doing social media before your launch. And then before you invite all your friends. Nothing's worse than getting, like everyone knows that guy had started like 5 businesses, but they've like none of them made it past like 2 months. But he creates a website and Instagram and Facebook for every single one of them and invites you to them. And you're still following all of them, but they never even got off the ground. Like, I think everybody's kind of had those friends. You don't want to be that guy. So go ahead and start posting, getting some content out there. And this is great for exchange with new stuff. Last but not least, number 10, learn to manage cash flow. Man, I wish somebody would have taught me this early in the game. This is probably number 2 to sales. Okay. Deposits. When you go to the bank and you open up your bank account, I want you to open up 2 or 3 checking accounts and at least 2 savings accounts, in my opinion. One of those savings accounts is going to be a deposit account. All the deposits you get for selling like job material, I would put in this account. And then when you got to pay for the door, I would set up net 30 terms and I would keep that money in there. And if you can set it up in an interest bearing account, is even better. And then I would take your deposit and leave it in there and I would pay my bills out of it. Or maybe it's a checking account, right? And you just pay your material cost out of your deposit account. So your deposit needs to cover your material, at least minimum. And that needs to go in the deposit account. And then you're going to do net 30 terms. You're going to build that account up. That's not your money. It's not your money. Don't spend it unless you absolutely have to. And then when the customer has you install it and you collect on site, every job, when you're finished, collect, and then you will get a bill for that a few weeks later. And then you're going to pay for it out of that account. That way, there's no confusion. And then you're going to have an operating checking account. And the operating account is where a lot of money is coming in and out from credit cards, things like that. And if a credit card payment's made for a deposit, you need to transfer that over to the deposit account. So it's not getting confused in the main checking, the operating account. You're going to pay all your bills and stuff out of your operating, or you could even name one bills account and start transferring everything in there. Now, if you are a big profit first fan, the right way to do it would be to have a profit account. And instead of transferring your bill money into a bills account, you would just leave the operating account as your bills account and then open up a profit account and then shovel the percentage of profit that you want into that account. So let's say you want 10 or 15% or 20% net profit. When a deposit hits, you're going to take the remaining amount, you're going to put it into your profit account. Now, keep in mind, if you are accepting credit cards but you probably should be, there's going to be a fee for that. I would figure that into every single account that you have. So let's say, for example, you expect to do 20 jobs a month starting out. Okay. And let's say you have an average ticket with doors and everything at 1,500. It's $30,000. If you take credit card on, let's say 60% of that, 3%, that's $540. How many jobs we say we were going to do? 20. So we're going to take $540 divided by 20. That's $27 per job that we need to factor in for credit card payment. So $27 is pretty simple per job. Is that right? I think so. So $27 needs to be added to your price for everyone, not just the people who, like, I would just increase your prices $27 and that'll cover all credit card processing. So now you're taking everything into consideration and you are managing cash flow. There's a lot of hidden expenses like those credit card fees. I would not charge my customer the credit card fees. I do see a lot of people make that mistake. I think you should not go down that path. I don't think that that's the most beneficial. People don't like being nickel and dimed. And nothing says small time more than charging people extra for using credit card or having an email address that says like aaronoverheaddoors@gmail.com. When you're setting up email and you want people to email you, then you need to have your domain name and don't put your email address on your truck. Waste of time. Bad idea. Don't do it. I'm a big fan. When we talk about software, let me just go back to software real quick. Number 5, set up Google Suite Workspace. I think they call it now. Google Workspace. I can probably give you an affiliate link with a discount on that as well if you want. Just hit me up. I think it'll discount it for you. I'm not 100% sure. Let's see. Business Starter, $6 a user. And it's a 1-year commitment, but this is going to give you custom and secure business email. You can set up your domain email on here. I would buy your domain at GoDaddy. It's really simple and easy to use. 100 participant video meeting, 30 gigabyte pulled storage per user, security and management controls. You're going to get like the drive component of this and the calendar component. So definitely. I forgot about that, but definitely set up Google Workspace. I'm going to add this to my notes so that you guys have it on the podcast. All right. So why do we want to put our deposits into a separate account? Number 1, that's not your money, right? Number 2, I think it's very important that we're not spending other people's money and have false growth. Now, learning cash flow, when you create your QuickBooks account, I need you to figure out a system or hire a bookkeeper to figure out and get your bills put into QuickBooks. You want your bills to go into QuickBooks and categorized so that you can see what's due the next month. Okay. And you should have all that money in your deposit account from your suppliers that you're buying doors from that are sold and motors from that are sold. So what you probably won't have in there is inventory, which you need to keep low. It's not really like parts are not expensive enough to buy bulk right now. A lot of people want to go out and buy a pallet of springs. Dumb idea. You don't need it at the moment. Like really just focus on carrying enough for 2 or 3 weeks, whatever you need. Don't go out and buy a crap ton of stuff and tie up cash. Cash flow is super important. I would get net 30 terms with all of my suppliers. Although I am going to put the money in the bank, I'm going to still get net 30 terms. We're going to get free money. We want to borrow as much free money as possible. And in this case, if they're willing to be a bank for 30 days, we're going to take it because you're going to need it later as growth happens. Keep overhead down as long as possible. So we're talking about cash flow. This is 10. And lastly, um, cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. Keep your overhead down. It gets exciting when you hit that $20,000 and $30,000 mark consistently a little bit over time. $30,000 seems to be a little bit of a glass ceiling for a lot of people. It's where it's like too much for one person. You got to have a little bit of help, and it takes a huge leap of faith to hire that first person in the field. And then it's like, can you afford to pay yourself plus that person? There's a lot going on there, right? If you're doing your sales right and you're driving revenue, I would say do things that get you out of the position that bogs you down the most. One of the most common things that you're going to find is you need to hire someone as soon as humanly possible, but it's really important that you hire the right person. So I would start recruiting that person early, whether they know they're being recruited or not. Build a relationship, learn how they do things, make sure they align with who you are. And honestly, I feel like you can't afford to strike out on this one. This one's really important. You got to get the first hire right. They got to be able to believe in what you're doing. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that here in just a second. But I would hire an installer first and then maybe an office person, because I don't want any calls going unanswered. And I want those calls being booked at a really high level. And if you get the right office person, they could probably do some bookkeeping for you where they enter in bills and send invoices and make sure that things are getting paid. And then, um, and then that way it could free me up for sales. So I could do more sales stuff and networking and stick with the bases, because by the time you get to that $20,000, $30,000 range, you're not able to make all those networking groups you did in the beginning. So we want to get back to those. And so hiring that person will help us get back to it. All right. Let's go back to number one, build a plan. I just realized I forgot one more thing. One more thing, and we'll wrap this up. So the last thing that I want to touch on is I want you to come up with a vision and mission statement and core values. Now, core values at this stage needs to be totally inspirational and related to like getting things done and growth and things like that, customer service. You want your core values when you start hiring people to be inspired by them. And you need to hire based on core values. You need to hire like people who are going to get excited about being part of something special and maybe having multiple hats at their job. And so having core values, mission, and vision statement, I think are super important at this stage, because if you start reading these and share what your values are, people can buy into that and it'll make it easier for you to hire someone. If you need help with this, again, this is something I've done many times. I can certainly try to help you as much as I can, but I definitely wouldn't launch my business without having some core values, mission, and vision statement. These can change. These can change over time. You want them to be very inspirational at this point in the stage of the game. And mission and vision need to be about where you're going and what you're doing. Okay. What do you want to accomplish? What are you doing it for? So take some time, have some creative time, close and lock the door, put some headphones on, whatever, get some big sticky notes and get cranking on that, because I think that once you nail that down, it'll also help you with the roadmap for where you're going as well. I hope you enjoyed today. Next week, we'll be going over a bunch of stuff. Actually, I won't have a podcast next week. I'll be traveling. We're going down to Puerto Rico to check out Garage Door Use Summit locations. I'm going to Boston for 2 days. I'll try to record something if I can, I promise. But if I can't, I'll pick this up the following week. But I'm going to Boston to go to a couple of Braves games with Eric Yule. Thank you, Eric Yule. You're the best. And then we're going to Puerto Rico to scope out some locations for Garage Door Use Summit. So hit me up. Let me know what you think. Do you like this podcast? Is this helpful? I'm going to share it in some of the groups. Hopefully some people who are thinking about starting their own business, this would be a good format for them. Even if you started your own business recently, this could be something that could remind you or just be catch something before it gets too late, whatever. And then maybe you're well established and you're ahead of me and you think some of the things I've said are wrong, or I forgot some things. I'm sure I probably did. Make sure to hit me up. There's going to be a lot more that I'm going to be going over the next few weeks as well, trying to equip you and prepare you to have a successful launch and successful long-term vision business. So stay tuned. Talk soon. Thank you.